There are a lot of words in the English language that have more than one meaning. Two, for example, has three. There, and of course, light. So the talk today is called You to Light. And we talk about the light, the bright light of God's love that shines in and through and as everything. And I love to say you to light, and somebody says, no, you to light. It's actually, yes, you to light, because we all delight. And light gets used in lots of different ways, because we mean it as that divine presence, that essence, that star stuff that shines through each of us. It shines through everything. And we talk about it in terms of a light bulb, and the way that the sunlight shines and brings illumination into our experience. And there are lots of different ways that we use the term light. And one of the things that's been occurring to me lately is they all kind of fold back in on themselves. So the metaphor of light, where there's a light bulb, or that divine light of God's infinite love, kind of are the same thing. You ever have a great idea? Aha! Oh, I have it. And in a cartoon, how does that get represented? Light bulb. Okay, so it doubles back on itself. Because that light idea keeps on coming up again and again and again. And it really comes up for me as we head into the holiday season. And we call it the holiday season to be politically correct, but actually it's the holiday season because every religion and every spiritual practice celebrates the same thing in a different way. Christmas is about Hanukkah, is about Kwanzaa, is about the solstice, they're all the same. They're all the same. And what's been going on is that the days have been getting shorter and the nights have been getting longer. And that's just, Northern Hemisphere-wise, that's what's going on in the world around us. And even before there were organized religions to notice something and celebrate Hanukkah or Christmas or whatever, there was a desire to take that darkness, that added darkness that we had, and decorate it. To express our creativity with light. So around here it's cold and it's dark, and we have that natural tendency to kind of go into hibernation, or want to, because we're way too busy, of course, because it's the holidays. There's that whole winter, bear in the snow kind of metaphor that we have. I spent 10 years living in Florida. There are no bears. There is no snow. It doesn't even get dark particularly early because it's far enough south that it doesn't affect it that much. And still, there's a wonderful celebration of light. It's called the Fort Lauderdale Boat Parade. And what happens is, on the Intracoastal Waterway, there's this parade of boats, and it's big and gaudy, and they put lights on all the boats, and they're nicely decorated. They're the same boats that are going up and down the waterway, going out to go scuba diving or fishing or recreating or whatever it is that they're going to do all year round, but now it's going to be organized, and there's going to be this orderly parade of boats, all decorated with lights. Another one of those word things. When you have a parade, you take a truck, you put some decorations on it, you call it a float. When you have a boat parade, you put some lights on it, you know what you call it? A boat. Because it's already floating. And it's just one more opportunity to gather and take advantage of the fact that our experience, the world around us, has changed a little bit, so we get to shift our perspective and focus a little bit more on something that's important, whether it's beauty or light or a new idea or whatever that happens to be. So when you look out and you see darkness, you can say, damn, it's dark. Or you can say, an opportunity. There is an opportunity to bring something different into the situation. If I were to go out in the middle of the noon, in the middle of the summer, and light a candle, nobody could tell. If I take that same candle in the middle of a cavern, You can see it from everywhere. So, on the one hand, we look at that darkness as being a challenge for us, as being something that's limiting because we don't have the natural light that's available. And it's also an invitation. It's an invitation to get creative. What do I want to bring into this space? What light do I want to bring into this blank canvas? What am I creating right now? So, I don't know what you're creating right now. God knows what you're creating right now. But God knows what you're creating right now. And the invitation is always open. What is it that you're called to be creating? What is it that you're yearning for? What's coming up inside of you? This is a wonderful time of year to let go of some of the distractions of, I have to go shopping for holiday presents so that I can give people stuff. And look at what's calling for you to give of yourself. What are you going to be creating that's new? We have this New Year's celebration that's coming up, and everybody thinks that it's really important for some bizarre reason. To me, it was an opportunity back in the good old days to go buy a new calendar because the old one expired. But metaphorically, there is an opportunity to celebrate something that's new, something that's fresh. So if you had a blank slate, if you had a brand new, fresh opportunity, if you could do something different tomorrow than you did yesterday, if you got a chance to let go of your attachment to the things that have been so that you can have something different, what do you want? No pressure. Except, of course, whatever it is that you want is probably what's going to be showing up in your life. That's the cool thing about prayer and prayer works, the way that we do it around here, is the invitation is made, and we let ourselves, whatever blocks we have, whatever disbelief we have that it can't happen, out of the way, and then it shows up. We wind up with a wonderful prayer work story. Reverend Dave reminded me of a prayer work story this morning that you did not get around to sharing, so I guess I will. And we refer to this as a softball prayer work story because as soon as the prayer request was made, it's like, this is done. And that's not to limit it. That's actually really wonderful. In the New Testament, when they talk about Jesus praying, Jesus looked at something, said, this is what's going to happen, and then it happened, and that was the miracle. There was only like one place where he said, no, this is the process that you go through in a prayer. That was the Lord's Prayer in the Sermon on the Mount, where he was giving us instructions on how we pray, which is the same formula that we use in practical prayer. But what he would do is he would look at the situation and know a different truth about it and be absolutely, completely centered in the conviction that that new experience was coming about and say, Lazarus, rise, and up from the dead he came. Healed the lame, cured leprosy. I mean, all sorts of stuff in the stories of what happened by looking that fact in the face and knowing something better. He didn't need to go through the 5 steps or 7 steps or 9 or 27 or however many it takes to get to the point where you believe it. And that, I think, is because he was always living in the awareness that there is one infinite power and presence, and he was always living in the awareness that he was it. He was always living in that space of gratitude, grateful to be part of that process. And by living in that space of prayer, which as Jesus was saying, pray without ceasing, to be able to do that was to be able to just see that invitation for something new to be happening. Speak the word, set the intention, and it happens. So Reverend Dave's prayer work story was from, how long ago did she ask about that? It was last summer?
Actually, that prayer goes back 5.5 years.
5.5 years, okay. We'll come up and share the story because this is personal for you. And you can, and this talk wasn't planned, so.
Right. Okay, so as some of you know, because you were there yesterday, our wonderful Board of Trustees member, Annie Steele, got married. And so 5 years ago, I've known Annie for about 15 or 20 years or something like that, way back into the history. 5 years ago, Annie had come to me because she was alone and feeling like she wanted to have a partner and in her life, and she asked me to pray for her to find that perfect mate. And so she did, and she got married once, and it lasted 2 years, and she got divorced because that person was not actually the perfect mate. It turned out differently. And so she came back and prayed again with me to say, I'm looking for my perfect mate. And that only that prayer like was maybe 3 weeks in the making, and it was like, and there they were. And they got together yesterday, and I had the honor and the blessing of pronouncing them in, or wife and wife.
Wife and wife.
It would be the way to do it. So the brides are happily off on their honeymoon. So, yeah. Prayer works.
And where I came into that story that makes it such a softball for me is that she was worried that she would ask Kate and Kate would say no. And she said, will you pray for me that this all goes together perfectly? And that she says yes. It's like, done. Because of course I'd seen the two of them together. So it was easy to look past her doubt and uncertainty and the darkness that she was experiencing and see the light of the truth that was inside of that for her. So it is, boom. And in the same way, I'm going to tell another one of Annie's prayer work stories, because she was also up for a Woodrow Wilson Fellowship, which she was awarded this week. Big week for Annie.
Yes.
And we did the prayer on that, and it's like, yeah, done deal, no problem. And then when she announced on Facebook that she got it, I said, I already knew that. But it's nice that everybody else knows that now as well. So the point of it is, when there is something that seems murky or dark or obscure, or let's take it into the spiritual realm, mysterious. When there's something mysterious, something you don't know what's going next, you don't know what's going to be happening, that's the time when you can turn to that light that you're carrying within you. You the light. You the light. If you're not seeing the light out there, it's time to turn it up a notch. It's important to be intentional about what it is that you want to have happen in your life. Because otherwise you're just praying for something good. And of course, whatever happens, somebody might think it's good, in which case it's done. But if you have a preference about what it is that you want to experience, then be a little bit specific about not necessarily what it's going to look like, although that can help, but what it's going to feel like. Once this happens in my life, once this has come into our experience, shared where everybody, out in the world where everybody can see it, how am I going to feel about it? How am I going to feel about being with this person? How am I going to feel about having this job? How am I going to feel about whatever newness that I'm looking for? And that's the idea that we light up with our intention, that we light up with our love. The way that we shine our light is by putting our energy into that new idea, by setting that intention specifically, and then whatever it is that we're guided to do, whatever steps are ours to take, we take those. Now this thing between Annie and Kate could have gone forever if she didn't actually get around to asking. She had to do her part. And we all have a part to do in whatever's going on. I'm not sure about with Jesus' story whether you needed to get into a different lane on the highway or just pray harder. But it seems to have sorted itself out. So it's about knowing the truth about the experience that you want to have, then taking whatever steps are yours to change. And that gets into all of the stuff like surrender and forgiveness, because we're not necessarily going to get something new by doing the stuff that we've always done. So there is always the opportunity for us to change around something in the game that we're bringing. But it comes back to the same thing. There is a bright light of God's infinite love that is shining through and as and in everything. That divine and perfect light of God's love is shining through and as and in you. And in the situation that you're facing, and in the challenge that you're dealing with, and in the person who you have previously been cursing at. Oh yeah, they're the bright light of God's love too. And we're not necessarily looking for the world, the ground to open up and swallow them so they go away. What we're looking for is for things to shift so that they're not causing the distraction or the disturbance in our lives that they had been before. When I was on the radio, when I was in some of the smaller markets, one of the brilliant things that they did when there was competition, like between morning shows. So there's like 2 top 40 morning shows, these radio personalities versus these radio personalities, and they're vying for the same audience. At some point, some brilliant program director would take a recording of the competitors and send them to bigger markets. Because if they can get them hired by get them a better job in a bigger town, that leaves the playing field open. Now, that's an interesting way to win. That's everybody wins, you know, because the guy who's leaving really doesn't mind. Oh, well, I was such a threat that they needed to move me up to New York. That happened several times, and that's okay. That's okay. And if you're the person who wants to be saying in Charleston, South Carolina, by sending the competitors to New York, that's okay too. All of the same pieces fitting together in a slightly different way, and it brings more good, more love, more joy, and more prosperity for everybody. In order for you to win, you don't have to have somebody else lose. In order for your light to be shining, you don't need to darken anything else. There is only light. The opportunity and the invitation is when we're not seeing the light, or we're not seeing it as bright, or with the clarity or the intensity that we're yearning for, is to let our small thinking get out of the way and allow that light to shine. Let me repeat one more time. You are the bright light of God's infinite love, shining in a unique and wonderful and joyous way, bringing more good into the world. And I am so grateful for it. So it is.